Don't clap for that horse. That was what the soaked boy whispered from the back of the ballroom, between two service carts, rain dripping from his sleeves, his hands shaking hard enough to rattle the silverware. Nobody heard him the first time. The auctioneer was praising a hand-carved wooden horse donated to the Clara Vale Foundation's Memory Bridge program. Behind him, the horse sat beneath a glass case, small, scarred, and strangely ordinary for something rich people were bidding on like a museum treasure. 800,000, someone called. The guests applauded. The boy stepped forward. Don't clap for that horse. A woman in pearls frowned. A waiter reached for him. Across the room, Adrian Vale, grieving billionaire, barely glanced up. Since building a foundation in his dead daughter's name, he had learned to ignore interruptions before they reached his heart. Then the boy shouted, "Her mother is dead, and you're selling the only thing she left." Adrian stopped. Evelyn Price, the foundation director, moved toward the microphone. "Please forgive the disturbance. This child appears to be confused." "I'm not confused," the boy said. He ran before security could catch him, slammed both hands on the glass case, and pointed to the horse's back leg. "There's glue under the paint. Rosie fixed it with her mom the night before her mother went to the hospital and never came home." Evelyn's face did not change, but her hand closed around the podium. Adrian recognized the thing she could not quite hide: fear. Adrian Vale did not follow the boy immediately. Later, that delay bothered him most. For 3 seconds, he stood beside his table, watching security pull the child away from the glass case. The boy twisted once, not to escape, but to keep his eyes on the wooden horse, as if losing sight of it would be another kind of theft. Evelyn Price was already saving the evening. She thanked the guests for their patience. She called the disruption deeply unfortunate. She reminded them that the Clara Vale Foundation had spent 9 years building Memory Bridge, a program designed to preserve the stories of children who had lost parents, homes, or stability. Her voice was low, warm, and practiced. The kind of voice donors trusted because it never sounded hungry. Adrian had once trusted it too. When his daughter Clara died, he had built the foundation because he could not bear the idea of her name becoming only a date on a stone. At first, he read every proposal. He visited shelters. He wrote notes to families. Then the foundation grew. The galas got larger. The board got louder. Evelyn made things efficient, beautiful, measurable. Adrian led her. Efficiency was easier than grief. Now he looked at the little horse under the glass. Its painted saddle had faded to a dull blue. One ear was chipped. The repaired back leg looked crude beside the velvet beneath it. Nothing about it belonged in a room full of diamonds. "Adrian," Evelyn said, reaching his side without seeming to hurry, "we should keep the program moving. I'll have security handle the child gently." "Who is he?" "A shelter boy, most likely. The hotel staff found him near the service corridor earlier. He may have followed catering in." He knew the girl's name. Children repeat things, especially when they're frightened. Adrian turned toward her. Evelyn did not flinch. She had an answer before panic could enter a room. "The item has a complete intake record," she said. "Anonymous donor. Cleared through Memory Bridge transfer protocol. Martin Quill verified the provenance himself." Martin Quill, the auction consultant, gave a grave nod from near the stage. Adrian should have accepted that. Instead, he heard the boy's voice again. "Her mother is dead." He walked toward the side corridor. 2 guards had Noah Bell near the service elevator. The boy's wet hair stuck to his forehead. His left cheek was red where someone's sleeve or elbow had dragged across it, but he was not crying. "You're the man who owns this," Noah said when he saw Adrian. "I don't own the foundation. That's what rich people say when something goes wrong." One guard tightened his grip. Adrian lifted a hand, and the guard let go. "What's your name?" "Noah." "Last name?" Noah hesitated, like even that could be used against him. "Bell. And Rosie?" "She's 8. She sleeps at Harbor House. The horse is Comet. Her mom made the saddle blue because Rosie said brown was too sad." Adrian said nothing. Noah swallowed. "There's glue under the paint because the leg broke when Rosie dropped him during a fire drill. Her mom fixed it at the shelter table. I watched them. Rosie cried because she thought broken things got thrown away." A donor passed the corridor entrance and slowed to stare. Evelyn stepped between the hallway and the ballroom, blocking the view. "Noah," she said gently, "I understand you're upset. But making accusations at an event like this can hurt many children who need help. You already hurt one." The words were small, but they landed harder than a shout. Evelyn's expression cooled by only a degree. Adrian, this is exactly why we have child protection procedures. He needs a social worker, not an audience. Noah kicked at the soaked backpack near his feet. Look inside. The guard reached down first. Noah snapped, not you. Adrian crouched and opened the bag himself. There were no weapons, no stolen watches, no protest flyers. Just a cracked pencil, a half packet of crackers, a child's inhaler with Rosie Hart written on the label, and a folded photograph sealed in a plastic sandwich bag. Adrian took out the photograph. A little girl sat on a narrow bed with a grey blanket over her knees. She was thin, dark-eyed, and smiling with the careful effort of a child who had learned not to ask for too much. In her lap was the wooden horse, same chipped ear, same blue saddle, same crooked back leg. Printed at the bottom of the photo was a date from 6 weeks earlier. Adrian turned toward Evelyn. This time, she did not speak quickly. Then she said, "That proves emotional attachment, not ownership." But Adrian had already opened the gala program in his other hand. Lot 17. Hand, carved memorial horse. Donated through Memory Bridge intake. Recorded transfer date, 18 months ago. The horse had been photographed in Rosie Hart's arms 6 weeks ago. The foundation record said it had been donated a year and a half earlier. One of those things was a lie. By morning, the gala had become a controlled incident. Evelyn used that phrase in her first message to Adrian. A controlled incident. The phrase folded the boy, the stolen memory, and the impossible photograph into something tidy enough for a board memo. Adrian read the message twice while standing in his kitchen, still wearing the shirt from the night before. Outside the windows of his penthouse, Manhattan looked polished and distant, all glass and morning light. On the counter beside his untouched coffee lay the gala program, the photograph of Rosie Hart, and the small card from Lot 17. He had spent 9 years building a foundation that promised dignity to children who had lost too much. Now an 11-year-old boy from a shelter had made him wonder whether dignity was only the word they printed on donor packets. By 8 o'clock, Adrian was in a black sedan heading downtown without his press aide, without his lawyer, and without telling Evelyn until he was already 5 blocks from Harbor House. The shelter stood between a discount pharmacy and a closed laundromat, its brick front scrubbed clean in some places and stained dark in others. A blue banner near the door read, "Temporary beds, long-term hope." One corner had come loose and snapped softly in the wind. Noah was sitting on the front steps with his backpack between his knees. He stood the moment he saw Adrian. "You brought police?" "No." "Lawyers?" "No." "Then why are you here?" Adrian glanced at the building behind him. "Because one of those things in my program is wrong." Noah studied him, searching for the trick. "One? For now," Adrian said. That answer seemed to bother the boy more than a lie would have. Inside, Harbor House smelled of oatmeal, bleach, damp coats, and old heat coming through overworked vents. Children moved around Adrian the way birds move around a parked car, curious but ready to scatter. A few adults looked at his suit before they looked at his face. Lena Keene, the shelter director, met him near the front desk with a smile that had been trained to survive bad news. "Mr. Vale, we weren't expecting you." "I know." Her eyes flicked toward Noah. "There was some confusion last night. Noah should not have left the building. We're reviewing supervision. Noah is not why I'm here." Lena's smile thinned. Rosie Hart was in the reading corner near the back window, sitting under a poster about Library Day. She was smaller than Adrian expected from the photograph. Her hair had been pinned back with 2 mismatched clips. A plastic inhaler rested beside her open book, and a red sweater hung over her shoulders though the room was warm. When Noah approached, Rosie looked first at his hands. "You didn't bring him back," she said. Noah's jaw tightened. "Not yet." Adrian felt the words before he understood them. Him, not it. The wooden horse had a place in Rosie's mind that no catalogue could touch. Noah crouched beside her. "This is Mr. Vale." Rosie looked up. Her eyes were watchful, not shy. "Are you the man whose people took Comet?" The question passed through Adrian cleanly. "I'm the man who should have known if they did." "That's not the same thing." "No," he said. "It isn't." In that moment, Adrian wished he had come somewhere with less money and more answers. He lowered himself into the chair across from Rosie. "Can you tell me about the horse?" Rosie reached for the empty space beside her book before remembering it was empty. Her fingers curled against the tabletop. "My mom carved his tail smooth because it scratched my blanket," she said. "His ear broke when I was 5. The leg broke during a fire drill because I had to carry my backpack and my medicine bag and him. Mom said horses don't need perfect legs to know where home is." Noah looked away. Adrian kept his voice steady. Did anyone from the foundation visit you? Rosie nodded. A lady with soft shoes. She said she was collecting memory stories. She asked what I would save if there was a fire. What did you say? Comet. And after that? She took pictures. She said maybe my story could help other kids. Rosie's mouth tightened. Then Comet went missing from my bed 3 days later. Lena stepped in quickly. Rosie, sweetheart, we talked about this. Many children share rooms here. Things get moved. Rosie did not look at her. My things get moved when grown-ups don't want to say taken. The reading corner seemed smaller after that. Adrian turned to Lena. Was the foundation given access to children's personal belongings? For documentation only, Lena said. Memory Bridge sponsored storage boxes, grief workshops, school supplies. They've helped us for years. Did you sign any transfer forms? Lena hesitated for one breath too long. Administrative forms come through constantly. Our funding is complicated. The hesitation answered more than Lena did. Adrian asked Rosie, is there any mark on Comet that isn't visible in the gala photograph? Rosie looked at Noah. He gave the smallest nod. Under his belly, she said, there's a little star. It's crooked because the knife slipped. Mom said it looked more real that way. Adrian had seen the boy point to glue. He had not checked under the horse himself. Evelyn had kept the case locked after the disruption. Rosie reached into her book and pulled out a folded scrap of paper. It was a drawing of the horse from the side, done in colored pencil. Under it, in careful child letters, was Comet is not lost if somebody tells the truth. She pushed it toward Adrian. I made that after he disappeared, she said, so I wouldn't forget the parts. Adrian stared at the drawing longer than he meant to. Clara used to draw labels on everything too. Clouds, shoes, the moon, his briefcase when she was angry that he worked too much. Memory had weight. He knew that. He had built an entire institution around saying he knew that. But Rosie's drawing made the word memory feel smaller and more dangerous. His phone vibrated. Evelyn. He answered without leaving the table. Adrian, she said, I wish you had told me you were going there. Harbour House families deserve privacy. They also deserve their belongings. A pause. Of course. Which is why I pulled the intake file myself. The horse entered Memory Bridge through a family release. Signed and witnessed. By whom? Marisol Hart, Evelyn said. Rosie's mother. Rosie's face changed. Not dramatically. She simply stopped breathing for a second, then reached for her inhaler with a hand that shook. Noah stood. Her mom didn't sign anything. Evelyn continued, calm enough to sound kind. Grief can distort timelines, especially for children. I'm sending you the scanned form now. Adrian's phone chimed. The document opened on his screen. Memory Bridge voluntary transfer. Item description, witness initials, and a signature at the bottom. Marisol Hart. Lena went pale. Adrian faced Rosie. When did your mother die? Rosie did not answer. Noah did. 27 months ago. The form pulled Adrian's attention back. Recorded transfer date. 18 months ago. Marisol Hart had supposedly signed away her daughter's wooden horse 9 months after she was dead. Adrian did not leave Harbour House with an answer. He left with a dead woman's signature on a living document, a child's drawing folded inside his coat, and the uncomfortable knowledge that Noah Bell had trusted him with the truth, only because everyone else had already failed it. By noon, Evelyn had called 3 times. By 1, his attorney had sent a cautious email using words like exposure, defamation, donor confidence, and chain of custody. By 2, Adrian was sitting alone in a conference room at the Clara Vale Foundation, staring at the Memory Bridge dashboard on a wall-sized screen. Children served, keepsakes preserved, families supported, stories honored. For years, those numbers had comforted him. They made grief behave. They turned Clara's absence into charts, grants, newsletters, and smiling photographs on annual reports. Now every number looked like a locked drawer. He opened Rosie Hart's file first. Most of it seemed harmless. Intake notes, workshop attendance, a photograph release, a grief activity worksheet with Rosie's careful handwriting. Then, near the bottom, he found the item record for the wooden horse. Item ID, MBHH, 17,442. Storage category, unclaimed memorial object. Transfer status, cleared. Auction status, pending external valuation. Adrian read the line again. Auction status, not preservation, not family archive. Auction. The file had been created 18 months earlier, but the last internal update was only 7 weeks old. A week before Rosie's photograph had been taken, the Foundation system did not explain that. It simply absorbed the contradiction and kept moving. He printed the file, then stopped himself and printed the audit trail too. For once, Adrian did not ask for a summary. For years, he had asked for summaries. Evelyn was excellent at summaries. Now he wanted timestamps, user IDs, edits, deletions, access logs. He wanted the ugly version of the story, the one no Gala program could polish. The audit trail showed 3 staff members touching the record over 18 months. 2 were junior coordinators. 1 was Evelyn's administrative account. Adrian leaned closer. The account had changed the storage category from family hold to unclaimed memorial object 6 weeks and 2 days ago. He thought of Rosie's empty hand reaching beside her book. Then he thought of Clara's bedroom, boxed up by professionals because he had not been brave enough to do it himself. A knock came at the door. Evelyn entered with a folder pressed neatly against her ribs. "You're reviewing files alone. I founded the Foundation." "You did," she said, "and that is why you have to be careful. Personal involvement can compromise a review." Rosie's mother signed a form after she died. The family release may have been executed by an authorized shelter representative using the mother's prior consent. The scan is messy. I've asked legal to reconstruct the chain. "Reconstruct," Adrian repeated, to avoid misinterpretation. He closed the folder on his screen before she could see what line had caught him. "Who changed the item from family hold to unclaimed?" Evelyn's pause was brief enough to miss if a person wanted to miss it. "I'll have operations prepare a clean report." "I asked who changed it." "Adrian," she said softly. "A grieving child, a runaway boy, and a faulty scan are not the same as institutional wrongdoing." Her method was always the same. She did not deny the crack. She renamed it until it sounded too small to matter. After she left, Adrian did not call legal. He called Noah. The shelter would not let him speak to the boy at first. Lena said there were boundaries. Lena said Noah was under review for leaving the building. Lena said the Foundation's involvement had created stress for vulnerable children. Adrian heard Evelyn's language inside Lena's mouth, so he drove back. He found Noah in the rear courtyard behind Harbour House, kneeling beside a broken plastic storage bin. The boy had a screwdriver in his hand and a line of grease across his thumb. "You fix things?" Adrian asked. Noah did not look up. "Only things nobody wants to pay for." Rosie said she made a drawing after Comet disappeared. She made more than one. Noah glanced toward the shelter windows before reaching into the lining of his backpack. The pocket had been cut open and sewn badly shut. From it, he pulled 3 folded pages, each wrapped in a grocery receipt. "She gave them to me because she said grown-ups clean rooms before they tell the truth." Adrian took the pages carefully. The first was a drawing of a shelving unit. Boxes stacked in 2 rows. Some had numbers, some had colored stickers. At the top, Rosie had written, "Memory room," but the Y bent backward. The second page was a list of codes. Hchtizanhit niet sasnedvenketu. Harkilen sastizanyols. BK. Komantiga. Komatujusen tujusatu. A dozen more. The third page was smaller, torn from a coloring book. It showed a square room with a door, an elevator, and a crooked arrow pointing to a wall marked, "No Kids." "When did she see this?" Adrian asked. "During the workshop. The lady with soft shoes asked kids to bring something that reminded them of family. Rosie didn't want to. Then the lady said sometimes a memory could help other kids feel less alone." "Evain?" Noah shook his head. "Younger, brown coat, smelled like peppermint gum. A coordinator." "Maybe." Rosie followed her once because Comet was in a grey box. She said the lady took it to a room that wasn't where they did crafts. Why didn't Rosie tell Lena? She did. Lena said the Foundation had procedures. Noah made the word sound like a locked door. Adrian studied the codes again. HH17442 matched the item file. Rosie had not guessed it. She had seen it. "Why didn't you give me these last night?" "Because last night you were one of them." "And now?" Noah tightened a screw until the cracked plastic held. "Now you're maybe one of them who feels bad." It was not forgiveness. Adrian deserved that. Inside, Rosie was asleep in the reading corner, with her sweater pulled up to her chin. Noah would not let Adrian wake her. For once, Adrian listened. He asked Lena for the Memory Bridge workshop attendance sheets instead. She resisted. Then he told her the Foundation could not review the matter without shelter records, and the color drained from her face as if the sentence had pushed on a bruise. "We can't lose that grant," she said. "No one is threatening your grant." You don't have to threaten something when everyone knows you can take it away. That sentence stayed with him. Lena unlocked a file cabinet in her office. Her hands shook as she pulled out the workshop binder. You need to understand, she said. When Memory Bridge came in, we were 3 weeks from closing the family wing. They paid for beds, winter coats, medication lockers, staff hours. They asked for stories and documentation. It sounded harmless. Did they ask for objects? They asked children to share objects, photograph them, tag them. Sometimes they offered to store fragile things. I never thought. She stopped. Adrian opened the binder. Rosie's workshop page had a photograph of her holding Comet and a printed label beneath it. Participant keepsake, wooden horse, ownership status, family hold. Family hold. The original shelter binder had preserved what the foundation file had later erased. Adrian photographed the page, then he compared the label number. Hertizenhit Venketu. The same code Rosie had copied. The same code in the foundation file. The same code attached to lot 17 at the gala. Only now it had traveled through 3 meanings. Family hold. Unclaimed memorial object. Auction item. By evening, Adrian returned to the foundation building through the private entrance. He did not go to his office. He went to the records floor, where old storage maps were kept in a database no donor had ever seen. He typed in the codes from Rosie's list. Most returned ordinary results. Then one code opened a restricted location. Annex C. No public inventory. No annual report reference. No donor-facing description. Just a storage designation and a note from 8 months earlier. Transferred for external curation pending spring valuation. Adrian sat back. The problem was no longer one wooden horse. Rosie had drawn a door the foundation claimed did not exist. Annex C was not on any floor map Adrian had ever approved. That should have been impossible. The Claravale Foundation owned 3 office floors, 1 public archive, 1 event storage facility, and a small preservation room where Memory Bridge items were supposed to be photographed, labeled, and returned to families. Adrian knew those spaces because, at least in the beginning, he had walked through them himself. Annex C was different. Its location field showed only a vendor code, MQ Heritage Logistics. Martin Quill's company. Adrian requested access through the internal system. The request returned a yellow banner. Restricted third-party custody. Legal approval required. He tried again using his founder credentials. The same banner appeared. 5 minutes later, his general counsel called. Adrian, before you visit any off-site property, we need to establish the scope of review. I want to see what my foundation is storing. Technically, if the items are under third-party curation, they may be covered by separate agreements. Agreements I signed? Some were executed by operations. Evain. A pause. We should avoid naming individuals before we understand the structure. Structure, scope, custody. Adrian had built companies in 4 countries. He knew when language was being used to make a door look like a wall. He hung up and stared at the vendor code. Across town, Noah was staring at something much smaller. A delivery label. It was stuck to the side of a grey plastic bin near the Harbour House loading entrance, half peeled from rain. Noah had gone there to fix the loose wheel on the laundry cart because the staff kept saying they would get to it and never did. While he tightened the bolt, a white van pulled up without a logo. 2 men carried out sealed bins, each tagged with a narrow strip of blue tape. Noah would not have cared, except one label began with HH. Hakilensasti, one of Rosie's codes. He memorized the last 4 numbers because he had learned long ago that poor kids got searched for paper, not for memory. When the van left, Noah followed on foot for 6 blocks, lost it at a light, then caught sight of it again outside a narrow brick warehouse in Queens with a sign that read, Quill Conservation Services. He did not go inside. He was reckless, but not stupid. Instead, he waited behind a bus shelter until one of the warehouse workers propped open the side door to smoke. Rows of grey bins stood beyond him, blue tape on some, red tape on others. Noah saw a child's pink backpack in an open bin near the wall. Then a man stepped into the doorway, and Noah ducked away before he was seen. He called Adrian from a borrowed phone at the bodega. You said Annex C? Noah asked when Adrian answered. How do you know that name? I don't, but I know where your missing boxes go. Adrian arrived 40 minutes later in a car without a driver, wearing a dark coat instead of a suit jacket. Noah noticed that first. You dress less rich, the boy said. He tried. You failed. Adrian almost smiled, then remembered why they were there. The warehouse sat between an appliance repair shop and a paper supplier. Nothing about it looked criminal. That made Adrian uneasy. The worst systems rarely looked hidden. They looked invoiced. He did not let Noah enter first. He went to the front office and asked for Martin Quill. The receptionist said Mr. Quill was unavailable. Adrian gave his name. That changed her face, but not her answer. Mr. Quill is in a private review. We can schedule. I'm reviewing Foundation property. I don't have authorization to release third-party inventory. I'm not asking you to release it. I'm asking to inspect it. I'm sorry, sir. Without a written clearance from MQ Heritage and the Foundation's legal office, I can't open restricted storage. From the side hallway came the rolling sound of bins moving over concrete. Noah, who had been told to stay by the door, was no longer by the door. Adrian felt a sharp stab of anger, then fear. He followed the sound. By the time he reached the service corridor, Noah had slipped through a hanging plastic curtain and was standing just inside the warehouse floor, staring. Adrian caught his shoulder. I told you to wait. Noah did not pull away. He pointed. The room was larger than it looked from outside. Metal shelves ran from floor to ceiling, grey bins, canvas bags, acid-free boxes, bubble-wrapped frames. Each row carried neat labels, school collections, memorial textiles, small artifacts, donor story assets. Donor story assets. On a table near the center lay objects waiting to be photographed: a cracked snow globe, a baby blanket, a pair of worn work gloves, a dented lunchbox, 3 cheap wedding rings in separate plastic trays, and a stack of letters tied with string. Noah moved toward the table as if pulled. Adrian stopped him. Don't touch anything. You mean don't steal anything? I mean don't give them an easy way to say you did. That reached him. Noah put his hands in his pockets. Then he saw it. A small empty space on a padded tray, labeled MBHH17442. The horse was not there, but its number was. Below the tray, a printed tag read, "Transferred to Gala Lot Display." Adrian took out his phone and photographed it. A door opened somewhere above them. Voices drifted from the mezzanine office. Evelyn's voice came first. The Harbour House items should not appear on the spring donor list until we clean the descriptions. Martin Quill answered, dry and annoyed. Descriptions are not the problem. Ownership language is. Then adjust it. Again? We need 3 clean provenance packets for the board review. Comet, the baptism blanket, and the lunchbox. The rest can wait. Noah turned to Adrian. Comet, Evelyn continued. Lower now, forcing them to lean closer without stepping out from the shelving. The donors don't ask once the tax letters go out. They want impact, not clutter. Martin laughed once. Clutter with fingerprints. Don't be theatrical. I'm being careful. The veil boy already made a scene. The bellboy, Evelyn corrected. And he is not a problem if he is handled as what he is. A pause. A trespass risk, she said. Possibly theft. Prone. Shelter history gives us enough. Noah's face hardened. Adrian gripped his shoulder before the boy could move. Martin's chair scraped. And Adrian is grieving in public again. If he insists on reopening closed transfers, we remind the board what happened the last time he made decisions from emotion. The last time, the words struck a place Adrian had no time to examine. Evelyn was not finished. Move the Harbour House keepsakes off-site by Friday. No hallway staff, no interns, no loose labels. And the horse? After tonight, it becomes evidence of donor generosity. That is much easier to protect than a toy. Noah whispered, She knows. Adrian shook his head once. It was enough to suspect. Enough to understand direction. It was not enough to prove the full machine. Evelyn had spoken in phrases, not confessions. Martin had complained about ownership, not admitted fraud. Every sentence opened a door and locked another behind it. A camera above the loading bay turned with a soft, mechanical click. Adrian saw it too late. Noah, he said. Footsteps sounded from the far aisle. A warehouse supervisor rounded the corner and stopped. His hand went to the radio at his belt. Sir, this is a restricted area. Adrian stepped forward. I'm Adrian Vale. The supervisor looked at Noah first. That kid came in through the service side. He is with me. He touched anything? No. The supervisor spoke into the radio. We have an unauthorized minor in restricted storage. Noah backed up. I didn't steal anything. No one had accused him yet. The accusation had arrived before the words. Within 10 minutes, Evelyn was downstairs. She did not rush. She did not raise her voice. She looked at Noah with disappointment so polished it seemed prepared. Oh, Noah, she said. After last night, I hoped you would let adults handle this properly. Adrian stepped between them. He found the location because your records were incomplete. My records? Evelyn turned to the supervisor. Please preserve the security footage. All of it. Noah stared at the camera, then at Adrian. In that moment, he looked 11 years old. Evelyn's voice softened. We have to consider whether the child entered with intent to remove property connected to an active charity auction. He removed nothing, Adrian said. Then the footage will protect him. But the way she said it made clear the footage had already become something else. By nightfall, the first message reached Adrian's phone from a board member. Is it true the shelter boy broke into Quill's storage and tried to take foundation property? Adrian stared at the screen. In less than 24 hours, Noah Bell had gone from witness to suspect, and the system had done it without raising its voice. The next morning, Noah's face was not in the newspapers. That would have been too crude. Instead, the first damage arrived as a paragraph in an online philanthropy column that never mentioned him by name. Sources close to the Clara Vale Foundation expressed concern after a minor connected to a city shelter allegedly entered a restricted storage facility tied to an active charity auction. The foundation declined to comment, citing child privacy. Child privacy. Adrian read the line in his office with the blinds half closed. He had heard enough corporate poison to know when a sentence had been mixed carefully. It sounded protective. It tasted like accusation. By 9, 3 board members had called. By 10, a donor asked whether the foundation's security protocols were still credible. By 11, Lena Keane left a voicemail saying Harbour House needed distance from the situation until the facts were clearer. Her voice shook on the word distance. Noah did not call. The boy had given him drawings, codes, and a path to Annex C. In return, the system had given Noah a new label, Trespassrisk. Adrian opened his laptop and wrote 3 requests before anyone could talk him out of them. First, a full audit trail of every memory bridge item tagged from Harbour House in the last 3 years. Second, an independent provenance review by Dr. Helena Morris, who had once refused a museum board appointment because, as she put it, rich people prefer beautiful uncertainty. Third, every tax acknowledgement letter connected to items later used in donor events, auctions, or private valuations. His chief financial officer called within 8 minutes. Adrian, that scope is enormous. Good. It may trigger disclosure questions. Better now than later. If this becomes public before we understand it, it is already public. Someone just made sure the public looks at the child first. There was a long pause. I'll send what I can access. What I can access. Another drawer with a quiet lock. While Adrian fought passwords and policy language, Noah sat in a storage closet at Harbour House because the common room had become unsafe in a quieter way. No one hit him. They simply looked away when he entered, as if trouble could spread by eye contact. Rosie found him there after lunch. You look like you swallowed a nail, she said. People keep saying I broke in. Did you? To find your horse. That's still yes. Noah glared at her, but Rosie pulled her red sweater tighter and sat on an overturned bucket. My mum used to say doing a wrong thing for a right reason still leaves a mess. Your mum said too many things. She was usually right. Noah picked at a strip of tape on the wall. Now Lena says I can't go near the loading door. The staff keeps checking my backpack, and Mr. Vale probably has meetings where people use big words until everybody forgets Comet. Rosie reached into her sleeve and took out a folded library bookmark. Mara said you should see this. On the back, in blue pen, was a name and an apartment number. Janelle Ortiz, 4B. Ask about the lunchbox. By late afternoon, Noah was on a bus with Mara Ellison, the night social worker, who kept insisting this was not an investigation. It is community follow-up, she said. That sounds worse, Noah muttered. Janelle Ortiz lived in a 4th-floor walk-up above a grocery. She opened the door with a baby on her hip and suspicion already in her eyes. When Mara mentioned Memory Bridge, the suspicion became fear. I don't want trouble, Janelle said. We're not here to make any, Mara answered. That's what people say before papers come. Noah held up both hands. We're asking about a lunchbox. Janelle looked toward the kitchen table. Beneath a stack of bills and baby wipes sat a photograph in a cheap plastic frame. It showed a little boy grinning in a hospital bed, holding a dented red lunchbox covered in superhero stickers. My son Mateo carried that everywhere, Janelle said. After he died, I kept his bus pass inside it. His little drawings, too. What happened to it? Mara asked. A foundation lady said they could preserve it. Said maybe Mateo's story could help other sick kids. I signed a photo form. Not a donation. Do you remember her? Brown coat. Peppermint gum. Noah felt something cold move through him. The same lady. Janelle pulled an envelope from a drawer. I asked for it back after 3 months. They sent this. Inside was a Memory Bridge letter thanking her for her generous contribution to its legacy collection. Attached was a tax acknowledgement, assigning the lunchbox an estimated charitable value of $6,000. Janelle laughed once without humor. I bought it at a drugstore for $9.99. Did you challenge it? Mara asked. Janelle's eyes hardened. I get housing assistance, SNAP, Medicaid for the baby. You think I'm starting a fight with people who have lawyers over a lunchbox they already say I donated? Noah studied Mateo's proud smile. Can we take a picture of the letter? Mara asked. If this comes back on me, it won't, Noah said too quickly. Janelle looked at him. You can't promise that. He lowered his eyes. No, it was the first honest answer anyone had given her. She let Mara photograph the letter. Across town, Adrian received Helena Morris in a records room that smelled of printer heat and old carpet. She was small, grey-haired, and unimpressed by the foundation's glass walls. Show me the horse file, she said. She spent 12 minutes reading before she spoke. This is not provenance. This is decorative paperwork. Can you prove fraud? I can prove sloppiness. Missing custody links. Language changes that benefit transfer. Fraud requires intent, pattern, and someone foolish enough to write too much down. Do we have a pattern? Maybe. She tapped the page. Comet moves from family hold to unclaimed memorial object. The lunchbox, if your new letter is accurate, may have done the same. The baptism blanket listed here was valued at $9,000, with no maker, no age, no market basis. These numbers are not appraisals. They are wishes wearing suits. Adrian almost smiled. Elena did not. Be careful, she said. A bad system protects itself by turning victims into bad record keepers. Poor families lose receipts, move apartments, change phones, miss appointments. Then the institution says, see? No reliable claimant. Adrian thought of Noah's backpack being checked, Rosie's drawing hidden in a book, and Janelle afraid of papers. By evening, Finance sent the first batch of tax letters. 31 items: Harbour House, Brookline Family Center, Street Agnes Pediatric Ward. Several later appeared in private donor previews, not public auctions. No single document proved theft. The maddening part was how carefully each page avoided falling all the way. Each page leaned. None fell. A photo release that sounded like a transfer if read cold. A storage label revised without explanation. A tax letter sent to someone who never understood its consequence. A valuation too high for the object and too useful for the donor. A missing return request. A story polished until the owner disappeared from it. Adrian built a spreadsheet himself because asking staff would alert too many people. He matched item IDs, dates, value estimates, and event appearances until the lines began crossing in ways that made his chest tighten. At 9:17 p.m., his phone lit up. A board member had forwarded a new article. Billionaire's grief clouds judgment. Insider's fear. After foundation founder sides with troubled shelter boy. There was no hard accusation. Just enough. The article cited anonymous concerns that Adrian Vale had become emotionally vulnerable to manipulation by a minor with a documented history of boundary issues. It praised Evelyn Price's steady leadership. It mentioned Clara twice. Adrian read the final paragraph 3 times. Those close to the foundation worry that Mr. Vale, still shaped by personal loss, may be allowing one child's disputed story to jeopardize programs serving thousands. One child's disputed story. Across the city, Noah's backpack would be searched again in the morning. Rosie's drawing would still be folded under Adrian's desk lamp. Janelle Ortiz would still be afraid of losing benefits because she missed her dead son's lunchbox. And somewhere inside the foundation's beautiful language, 31 families had already been reduced to paperwork. Adrian closed the article. Then he opened a new file and titled it People Before Provenance. Adrian chose the smallest conference room for the emergency review. He thought a smaller room would make the truth harder to perform around. No chandeliers, no cameras, no donor wall, just a long table, 9 chairs, and a screen where documents could be shown without ceremony. Evelyn sat with a closed folder in front of her, hands folded, expression calm. Martin Quill arrived 5 minutes late and apologized to no one. 2 board members joined in person. 3 appeared on video. The Foundation's general counsel sat beside Adrian, already uneasy. Adrian began without a speech. He put Rosie's photograph on the screen first. "This is Rosie Hart with the wooden horse 6 weeks ago," he said. "The Foundation record says the same horse entered Memory Bridge 18 months ago." He clicked to the next file. This transfer form was signed by Marisol Hart, Rosie's mother. Marisol died 27 months ago. A board member on video leaned closer. "That seems significant." "It is." Adrian moved before anyone could soften the word. He showed the Harbour House workshop binder, family hold. He showed the Foundation record, unclaimed memorial object. He showed the gala listing, lot 17. He showed the tax letters, the inflated values, the lunchbox letter from Janelle Ortiz, and the spreadsheet of 31 items whose paper trails bent in the same direction. Then he showed the Annex C tag, MBHH17442, transferred to Gala lot display. At the end, he placed both hands on the table. "I am recommending an immediate suspension of Memory Bridge auctions, a freeze on all related transfers, and a temporary removal of Evelyn from operational control, pending independent review." Evelyn looked at Adrian with something almost like sadness. "I understand why this feels compelling," she said. Martin Quill shifted in his chair. Evelyn opened her folder. "Unfortunately, what Adrian has presented is not a chain of wrongdoing. It is a chain of grief, confusion, and incomplete context." Adrian had expected denial. He had not expected preparation. Evelyn placed a document in front of the General Counsel. "This is the corrected release packet for the Hart item." "Corrected?" the Counsel asked. "The original scan in the system is incomplete. Marisol Hart gave verbal consent during an early family intake conversation before her death. Harbour House later confirmed transfer authority under its abandoned property policy after the item was left in shared shelter space and not formally reclaimed through procedure." "That is not what Rosie said," Adrian replied. "Rosie is a child processing loss. Noah saw the horse taken. Noah is an unsupervised minor who entered a restricted storage facility yesterday. There it was, quiet, clean, placed like a knife on linen," Evelyn continued. "Mr. Bell's intentions may be protective. That does not make his statements reliable." One board member frowned. "What about the mother's signature?" "A clerical merge error," Evelyn said. "The signature line auto-populated from the family profile when the release was reconstructed. That should have been caught. I take responsibility for the administrative oversight." She took responsibility for the smallest possible thing. Adrian studied the document. It carried Lena Keene's signature as shelter representative, a witness mark, a policy citation, a date that worked, a date that did not require a dead woman to sign. "Lena did not tell me this," Adrian said. "Lena is under pressure," Evelyn answered. "Harbour House depends on our grants. She may have panicked when confronted by you and a child making accusations in front of her residence. Do not make this my fault. I am saying your approach may have frightened a partner organization." A board member on video cleared his throat. "Can someone explain the abandoned property policy?" The General Counsel read from the packet. "Items left in common shelter areas for more than 90 days may be transferred to partner custody if deemed unclaimed, unsafe to store, or subject to program use with administrative approval." Comet was on Rosie's bed. "According to Rosie," Evelyn said, "the internal note says the item was found in a shared storage bin. Who wrote that note?" "A former coordinator. We are still locating her. The peppermint gum woman." Adrian felt the room shifting. Evelyn had given everyone a way to postpone courage. Martin Quill finally spoke. "The valuation issue is also being misunderstood. Objects connected to compelling narratives can carry donor value beyond material cost. Charity auctions are not retail shelves." "You valued a child's lunchbox at $6,000, Adrian said, "with narrative context, for philanthropic purposes, without the mother understanding it had become a donation." Martin's mouth tightened. "I was not present at intake." Of course he was not. Everyone had kept one clean step between themselves and the hand that took. Adrian turned to Margaret Sloan, the board chair. "We need to freeze the program." Margaret removed her glasses. "We need a review. But suspension before full council analysis could expose the Foundation to liability, donor breach claims, and public misunderstanding. Public misunderstanding is already being manufactured. Possibly. But we cannot repair a process by breaking process." Evelyn lowered her eyes at the perfect moment, as if wounded by the necessity of being reasonable. The vote was not a vote. It became a temporary administrative pause on new public listings. While existing custody reviews continued under legal supervision, Evelyn remained in place. Martin's contracts remained active, Memory Bridge was not suspended, and Adrian was advised not to contact shelter families directly until review protocol was clarified. Afterward, Evelyn stayed behind. "You should have come to me before building a case around children," she said. "I came to you for 9 years. That may be the problem." Pain crossed her face so quickly he almost missed it. "You think I stole from them. I think you built a machine that stopped seeing them." Her voice hardened. "Machines feed more children than feelings do." Evelyn had once told Adrian that the shelter that kept her alive as a teenager closed in February because donors loved rescue stories but hated operating budgets. He had admired the anger in her then. Now he saw what she had built around it. A belief that poor children could be protected only after their memories had been converted into money. There it was, the belief beneath the polish. At Harbour House, the consequences arrived before dinner. Lena called Noah into her office with Mara standing by the window. Rosie was not there. "Noah," Lena said, "until the external review is complete, you cannot enter storage areas, loading areas, or administrative rooms. You also can't leave the building without staff approval. I already couldn't do most of that. This is serious, because I found where they took things, because you were recorded in a restricted facility." Noah turned to Mara. She looked angry, but not surprised. "Where's Rosie?" he asked. Lena folded her hands. "Rosie's caseworker believes a short-term therapeutic placement may be better while this situation settles." Noah stood. "They're moving her? Temporarily. That means yes. She needs quiet. She needs Comet. She needs adults not pulling her into a legal fight." Noah's anger became organized. "When?" Lena did not answer. Mara did. "Tomorrow morning." Noah walked out before anyone could stop him. He found Rosie in the reading corner, but her books were already stacked in a paper bag. Her red sweater lay folded on top. She had drawn a horse on the bag, smaller than usual, with no saddle. "They said it's a place with better air filters," Rosie said. Noah sat beside her. "Did you ask to go?" She shook her head. "Then don't." Rosie gave him a tired look. "You say things like doors listen." He wanted to promise Adrian would fix it. Instead, he saw something tucked inside the folded sweater, a corner of blue. "What's that?" Rosie pulled it out. A torn sticker from a storage box. "Annex C. Hold for review." "I kept it from the day the lady took Comet," she whispered. It was stuck to her sleeve. Noah stared at it. For 1 second, the whole world became small enough to fit in Rosie's hand. Then the hallway speaker called lights out in 10 minutes. Noah folded the sticker back into her sweater. "Hide it somewhere they won't check." "Where?" He glanced at the book she always carried, because nobody ever took books from children who were leaving. "Inside the spine," he said. That night, Adrian received Lena's message about Rosie's transfer. Then a second message arrived from an unknown number. A photograph. Rosie's hand holding a torn blue sticker. "Annex C. Hold for review." Below it, Noah had typed, "They're moving her tomorrow." She kept one thing they don't know about. Adrian stared at the sticker. Evelyn had won the meeting, but Rosie Hart had kept the better evidence. Adrian stopped asking for permission before sunrise. The first call went to Helena Morris. He sent 3 photographs. The repaired back leg of Comet from the Gala catalogue, Rosie's drawing showing the same break, and the blue Annex C sticker hidden in the spine of her library book. Helena called back 8 minutes later. "Where is the object now?" "Still in the Gala display vault, unless Evelyn moved it. Then secure it before she understands why the glue matters." "You can date glue?" "I can narrow it. Sometimes that is enough to ruin a lie." The first lesson Adrian learned that morning was simple. Proof did not always have to shout. Sometimes it only had to make the official story limp. The second call went to Mara Ellison at Harbour House. Rosie's transfer van was scheduled for 10. Adrian could not legally block it without turning the girl into a public custody dispute, and Evelyn knew that. She had wrapped the move in clean language. Therapeutic placement, air quality, emotional stabilization. Mara answered in a whisper. "They're packing her medication bag. Is she safe?" "For now." "Lena is scared. The caseworker says the placement is approved." The caseworker was not cruel. That made it harder. She had a clean referral, a medical note about air quality, and a placement form that made removal sound like care. "Can you delay it?" "I can't invent a reason." Adrian studied the photograph of the sticker, Rosie's inhaler log. "If it's incomplete, any responsible placement has to verify the medication schedule before transport." Mara was quiet. That is very close to manipulating procedure, she said. It is using the procedure they used against her. No, Mara said. It's using it for her. At 9:42, the transfer was delayed pending medication reconciliation. Noah texted one word, good. Then, 2 minutes later, don't mess it up, Adrian almost answered. He did not. The boy did not need comfort from him. He needed competence. As founder and board officer, Adrian still held emergency preservation authority over foundation records when donor assets were under dispute. He had never used it before. That morning, he used it before anyone could narrow the definition of emergency. By 10, Adrian was in the foundation's basement records room with Paul Ivers, a retired systems manager who had been there before Evelyn and before donor dashboards. You want the live server, Paul said, or the old backup? The old backup. Good. Live servers tell you what people want you to see. Paul inserted an external drive into an archive terminal used for disaster recovery. You understand, Paul said. If legal didn't authorize this, I am legal enough for today. No, you're rich enough for today. Different thing. Adrian accepted that because it was true. They searched Memory Bridge records before the software migration from 14 months earlier. Many histories were clumsy but ordinary. Workshop photos, family permissions, return logs, storage notes. Then Paul pulled up HH17442. The older record showed the same beginning as the shelter binder. Ownership status, family hold. Return preference, child retains object. Do not remove from residence without guardian or child advocate confirmation. Someone had not merely misunderstood. Someone had overwritten. Paul exported the record. Look at the user note, he said. At the bottom was a comment that no longer appeared in the live system. Do not include in public catalog. Emotional owner still active. Rosie had existed in the old system. In the new one, she had become an unclaimed object. Adrian copied the file to 2 drives and 1 encrypted cloud folder. Then he called Margaret Sloan, the board chair. I'm requesting a donor review tomorrow, he said. Margaret sighed. After yesterday's meeting, not a vote, a reassurance session. Invite the major donors whose tax letters are in question. Tell Evelyn we need to calm them. You want to calm them. I want to see what she moves before they arrive. That is dangerous. So was trusting summaries. Margaret did not agree. She did not refuse either. By afternoon, the message went out. Limited donor confidence review. Selected files only. Memory Bridge item histories to be prepared by operations. Evelyn responded within 6 minutes. Of course. I'll make sure the materials are clean and consistent. Clean and consistent. Adrian forwarded the phrase to Helena. She replied, people only clean what they know is dirty. At Harbour House, Noah sat on the laundry room floor with Rosie's library book open across his knees. Mara had shown him how to loosen the spine without tearing the cover. Inside was the sticker, flattened and dull from being hidden. Annex C. Hold for review. Rosie watched from the doorway, wearing her red sweater and trying to pretend the delayed transfer did not scare her. You look like you're stealing from a book, she said. I'm rescuing it. Books don't like that. Books like evidence. Rosie came closer. Will Mr. Vale bring Comet back? Noah kept his eyes on the spine. Maybe. That's a grown-up answer. It's an honest one. She sat beside him. Mom said honest answers are heavy because you have to carry them after. Noah peeled the sticker free with the edge of a plastic card. Under the blue layer, something clung to the back, 2 pale fibers and a smear of grey adhesive. Mara sealed it in a plastic bag. Don't touch the back, she said. Noah stared at the tiny smear. That little things survive when people are careful. At 5, Helena examined the sticker and the horse leg in a private conservation lab that smelled of dust, varnish, and cold metal. Adrian watched as she compared adhesive samples. This sticker adhesive matches the residue on the underside of the display tray from Quill Storage, she said. Same manufacturer, same batch range, if the lot code is intact. And the glue? The repair on the horse is not old, not 18 months old. Weeks, perhaps a few months. The paint over it is newer than the catalogue claims. So the horse was handled recently. More than handled. Prepared. She placed the preliminary note in front of him. This is not final testimony. It is enough to justify preservation before evidence disappears. Adrian sent the note to Margaret and copied the general counsel before anyone could bury it. Then Paul called. You have an email hit, he said. Adrian stepped into the hall. From who? Evelyn's administrative account. 8 months ago. Subject line, Harbour House Spring Assets. Read it. Paul cleared his throat. Move the Harbour House keepsakes before the donor review. Keep child-facing labels out of the spring packets. Martin only needs clean provenance on 3. For a moment, all the lines crossed. Rosie's code, the sticker, the overwritten status, the warehouse tray, the glue, the lunchbox, the donor letters. Evelyn's own words. Still not the whole machine, but enough to prove there was a machine. Send it to me, Adrian said. Already did. And to the backup address you gave me. What backup address? Paul hesitated. Margaret had quietly sent him the oversight contact after the failed board review, with one instruction. If live records started changing, preserve a copy outside the building. The one with the Attorney General's Charity Oversight Unit. Adrian opened his eyes. Paul's voice crackled through the phone. You said people like me never hear enough until it's too late. I figured I'd hear better today. Across the city, Evelyn Price was preparing clean files for a donor review she believed she controlled. At Harbour House, Rosie's transfer was delayed but not cancelled. Noah stood near the front window, watching every van that slowed by the curb. The email glowed on Adrian's phone. Since the boy had climbed onto the gala stage, the truth had been begging to be believed. Now it had found a timestamp. The donor review began with flowers on the table, white lilies in low glass bowls, linen folders at every chair, bottled water aligned with the foundation logo facing outward. Someone had prepared the room to look calm, generous, and trustworthy. Evelyn Price had always understood rooms. She stood near the screen greeting board members and major donors, as if the last 48 hours had been a scheduling inconvenience. Martin Quill sat 2 chairs from her, polished silver pen in hand, his expression arranged into professional fatigue. Adrian entered without a folder. He carried 1 flash drive, 1 sealed evidence envelope, and Rosie's drawing in a clear sleeve. Noah was not in the room. Adrian had made that decision carefully. The boy had already been used as a target. He would not be used as theatre, but Rosie was there in another way. Mara Ellison sat near the back with a tablet on her lap, waiting. Margaret Sloan opened the meeting. This review is informal and preliminary. We are here to clarify concerns, protect the foundation, and avoid speculation. No, Adrian said. Every face turned. We are here because a child said something true in a room full of adults who preferred not to hear it. Evelyn's mouth tightened by a fraction. Adrian, we agreed this would remain procedural. It will. He plugged in the flash drive. The first image appeared, Rosie Hart sitting on her shelter bed, with Comet in her lap. This photograph was taken 6 weeks ago. The Foundation catalogue claimed the horse entered Memory Bridge 18 months ago. The next slide showed the original transfer form. Marisol Hart's name appears here. She was dead before this form could have been signed. Evelyn raised a hand slightly. The corrected packet addresses that clerical issue. Adrian clicked again. Family hold. Child retains object. Do not remove from residence without guardian or child advocate confirmation. This is the old server record before the migration. Not a corrected packet. Not a reconstruction. The original status. A donor whispered. Who changed it? Adrian clicked to the audit trail. Evelyn's administrative account changed the status to unclaimed memorial object 6 weeks and 2 days ago. Evelyn did not look at the screen. Administrative accounts are used by multiple staff members. Then we should preserve the login history. We should be careful with technical assumptions. We will. He moved to the next slide. The shelter binder label, the Annex C sticker, the tray tag from Quill Storage. Same item code. 3 systems. 3 meanings. First, a keepsake a child retained. Then, an unclaimed object. Then, a gala lot. Martin leaned forward. Item movement across systems does not prove misconduct. Museums, charities, and auction houses all use different classification language. Helena Morris, seated beside Margaret, spoke for the first time. Classification language does not usually erase the living owner. Martin's jaw worked once. Adrian opened the evidence envelope and removed the preliminary conservation note. The repair on Comet's leg is recent. The paint over it is recent. It does not match the claim that the object sat in Foundation custody for 18 months. Evelyn looked toward General Counsel. Preliminary notes should not be treated as findings. They are enough to preserve the object, Helena said, and enough to question anyone who prepared it for display. Adrian clicked again. Janelle Ortiz's tax letter appeared beside the photograph of Mateo's red lunchbox. This family signed a photo release. They received a tax acknowledgement for a donation they say they never made. $6,000 for a drugstore lunchbox. Martin's tone sharpened. Narrative value drives charity auction pricing. That is standard. Whose narrative? Adrian asked. No one answered. He clicked through the spreadsheet slowly. 31 rows. Item codes, family centers, tax acknowledgements, donor previews, private valuations. He did not rush. He wanted the room to feel the weight of repetition. This is no longer a question about one horse. Evelyn stood. It is also not proof of theft. It is a portrait of underfunded shelters, grieving families, incomplete paperwork, and a program that has served thousands of children. You are asking this board to treat administrative imperfection as moral collapse. Her voice warmed as she continued, becoming the voice from galas, videos, brochures, hospital wings. Memory Bridge took fragile stories and gave them reach. A toy on a shelf helps one child. A story shared with donors can feed 100. Mara pressed play on the tablet. Rosie's recorded voice filled the room, thin but steady. My mum said Comet was mine because I knew where he belonged. The lady said stories can help other kids, but she didn't ask if helping meant taking. They took the things people held when nobody else stayed. Adrian let the recording end. Then he showed the email. Move the Harbour House keepsakes before the donor review. Keep child-facing labels out of the spring packets. Martin only needs clean provenance on 3. Evelyn finally looked at the screen. Martin put down his silver pen. Margaret read the words once. Then again. Evelyn said, that email concerns presentation standards. Child-facing labels, Adrian said. You removed the labels that showed these items belonged to children. We protected privacy. You protected provenance. We protected the program. For whom? Adrian did not let silence become drama. He turned to the board. I allowed this. Maybe not the taking. Maybe not the altered labels or the valuations or the transfers, but I allowed a foundation in my daughter's name to become a place where reports mattered more than children. I signed summaries. I praised growth. I let clean language stand in for clean hands. Evelyn's composure cracked just enough to reveal anger underneath. You built a monument to your grief and handed me a machine with impossible demands, she said. Beds, medicine lockers, grief workshops, donor retention, annual growth. You wanted innocence scaled. I gave you scale and took what could not be scaled. Her eyes flashed. Sentiment does not keep shelters open. No, Adrian said. But stealing sentiment does not make it charity. Margaret closed her folder. Effective immediately, all Memory Bridge transfers are frozen. All off-site storage access is suspended pending independent inventory. Mr. Quill's contracts are paused. Evelyn, you will surrender operational credentials to Council. Evelyn turned toward the donors. You understand what this will do to the children depending on us. Helena answered quietly. They were already depending on you not to take from them. General Counsel stood. We also need to preserve every server backup, email archive, valuation packet, tax letter, and custody file. No deletions, no movement of physical items. Adrian studied the screen where Rosie's drawing still rested in the corner of the presentation. Comet is not lost if somebody tells the truth. For 2 days, everyone had asked whether Noah Bell had trespassed. Now the question in the room was different. How many locked doors had the Foundation built around stolen memories? And who else had been told to be grateful while losing the last thing they had? 2 weeks later, Evelyn Price did not sit beneath chandeliers. She sat at a narrow government table under fluorescent lights, with Martin Quill to her left and a deputy from the Attorney General's Charity Oversight Unit across from them. There were no lilies, no donor packets, no soft video about hope, only files, custody logs, tax letters, server backups, valuation sheets, the email about moving Harbour House keepsakes, photographs of children holding objects later described as Foundation assets. The deputy did not ask whether Memory Bridge had helped people. She asked who had authority to alter ownership status. She asked why child-facing labels were removed before donor reviews. She asked why families received tax acknowledgements for objects they said they had never donated. At last, Evelyn's careful language had nowhere elegant to stand. These were complex administrative processes, she said. The deputy looked at the Comet file. This was an 8-year-old child's property. Martin tried once to explain narrative value. The deputy stopped him with one sentence. A story does not become yours because you can sell it better. Noah sat beside Mara in the back row, arms folded, jaw tight. When his name appeared in the incident report, The deputy corrected the language aloud. Mr. Bell is identified here as a trespass risk. Based on the current record, he is more accurately described as the initial reporting witness. Noah lowered his eyes to his shoes. Rosie was not made to testify. Her recorded statement and drawings were entered through Mara. The order came near the end. Comet was to be returned to Rosie Hart, pending final property review, and all Memory Bridge items from vulnerable family programs were to be preserved, inventoried, and treated as disputed property until each family was contacted. Then Adrian stood. "I founded the system that failed these children," he said. "I mistook scale for service. I let other people turn grief into paperwork because paperwork was easier for me to look at." No one applauded. That made it feel more honest. For once, justice did not arrive like a speech. It arrived as a record being corrected. Comet came back in a cardboard evidence box. That became the first thing Rosie disliked about justice. The box had a printed label, a chain of custody seal, and 2 signatures across the flap. Mara carried it into the Harbour House reading corner, while Noah stood by the window pretending not to care who was watching. Adrian came last. He did not bring cameras. He did not bring donors. He did not bring a speech. Rosie looked at the box for a long time before she touched it. "Do I have to sign something?" she asked. Mara's face softened. "Only if you want to. This is yours." Rosie peeled the seal carefully, as if opening it too fast might hurt whatever was inside. When she lifted Comet out, one hand went first to the repaired back leg, then to the chipped ear, then underneath, where the crooked star still waited. She did not cry. She held the horse against her sweater and breathed like someone counting the way back to herself. Noah turned to Adrian. "You fixed it." "No," Adrian said. "Rosie kept the proof. You made people listen. I just stopped looking away." That answer seemed to bother Noah less than the others had. The weeks after that were not simple. Harbour House lost 2 promised grants while the investigation expanded. Adrian covered emergency operating costs through an independent escrow overseen by Mara and a city non-profit, not through another glossy program with Clara's name on it. He wanted to write one large check and make the shame feel smaller. Mara told him it was not repair, it was relief. Repair required receipts, patience, and listening to people who were tired of being grateful, so Adrian listened. Families came to the inventory room one by one. Janelle Ortiz found Mateo's red lunchbox on a metal shelf between a baptism blanket and a cracked snow globe. She opened it and found the bus pass still inside. For almost a minute, she said nothing. Then she asked for a copy of every document that had ever called it a donation. Other families were harder to find. Some had moved, some had changed numbers. Some did not answer letters from institutions because institutions usually wanted something back. The oversight unit kept digging. Martin Quill resigned from 2 boards before anyone asked him to. Evelyn's attorney released a statement about administrative complexity and decades of service. No one at Harbour House believed it. Rosie's transfer was cancelled, but she did not sleep easily for a while. She kept Comet beside her pillow, then under it, then finally on the little shelf near her bed, where she could see him without holding him all night. Noah noticed the change before anyone else. "You're leaving him up there now?" he asked. Rosie pulled her blanket to her chin. "He can watch from there. What if somebody takes him? Then we know how to make trouble." Noah smiled despite himself. Adrian came by every Thursday for 3 months. At first, Noah refused to sit at the same table. Then he sat at the end of it. Then one afternoon, when the laundry cart broke again, he handed Adrian a screwdriver and said, "Hold this. Don't make it worse." Adrian did not make it worse. That became a kind of beginning. He did not rebuild the foundation with a new slogan. He shut Memory Bridge down until every object was accounted for. He hired advocates chosen by the shelters, not by his board. He stood in front of reporters and said the sentence his advisors hated most. "We helped people in some ways and harmed them in others. Both are true, and only one of those truths made it into our annual reports." The quote cost him donors. It also brought back families who had never trusted the foundation enough to complain. On the last day of spring, Rosie drew a new picture of Comet. This time, the horse stood on a windowsill with the city behind him. Underneath, she wrote, "Comet came home, but he still remembers the road." Adrian kept a copy in his office, not on the wall where visitors could praise it, but inside the top drawer of his desk. Some memories did not belong on display. Some were meant to be protected, and some, Adrian had learned, were only safe when the people who owned them got to decide how the story was told.